That. Good morning, everyone. I know we still have people trickling through as it usually happens. We have a lot of people that'll kind of jump on periodically. We have some special guests today, and we're kind of getting back in the swing of our Zoom calls. We had the last 2 weeks off just because we had our board meeting and we had the holiday for 4th of July, and we figured that was just kind of too much going on. But here on out, we'll be consistently going through our calls. We'll have 3 Fridays a month where we'll have our Zoom calls, and we have a lot of guests coming up for the next couple weeks. And we'll keep you as apprised of those guests as we can as they come in, because Sarah and I have been working pretty hard on trying to find some really good talent and some topics. I know for next week, just a heads up, next week we are having Eric Worrell of Stochastic Marketing talking about the best practices on how to do direct mail. So he's going to be talking on direct mail campaigns and how to do a good one and how to do a bad one, and trying to give you guys some really good insight onto how to actually properly mail your market. So they'll be our guests next week, Friday. This week we have Jim Bergman from MeasureQuick, and he's going to be talking about digital tools for technicians and for the HVAC industry. We have quite a few things to talk about too coming up for our announcements we have. So our conference, as most of you guys have heard, because I can't stop talking about it, is virtual, because honestly it was one of those things where obviously we're in a changing world all the time, and then we tried to hold off to the last possible minute to make our decision because we wanted to make sure we were making the right one. Even after looking at multiple locations, it just wasn't cost effective, even with social distancing and stuff, to make it happen, especially coming off of Boston last year, which was fantastic. We didn't really want to lose that momentum by coming, backwards several steps by having a watered down event. Unfortunately, we will be virtual, but fortunately, we've got some pretty cool stuff planned for our virtual event. Our virtual event for the Women HVAC, our 17th annual conference, will be September 9th and 10th. That is a Wednesday-Thursday combo, ladies. It is 4 hours in the afternoon each day. We have our keynote speakers. We're still doing leadership. It's going to be lead forward. Our keynote speakers are Kristen Brown and Leanne Piano. We're going to be going over charged leadership, and then Leanne Piano is going to be going over the 7 traits of influential people. We have breakout session speaker, like just same as a normal conference. We have our marketing tracks, we have our soft skills track, and we have our technical tracks. In fact, we have NCI and Nate providing some technical track training during some of our breakout sessions. We'll have a login portal for our members. And my favorite part, of course, we are doing signups. When registration opens next week, we're going to be doing gift boxes. So you guys, the swag is one of the best parts of conference. I know that's why you come. I get it. I want the t-shirt and the coloring page too. So we have discovered a way to do boxes. So when you guys sign up, for the first people that sign up before X amount of date, they're going to get like a FabFitFun box. It's going to have the t-shirts. It's going to have the water bottles, the drink stuff, the swag that you want. You're going to have your Women in HVAC t-shirt. You're going to have all of your swag stuff with all of the logos and everything. We're also going to have some of the materials in there, possibly our coloring page and whatnot. So we're going to be able to have that interaction and give goodie bags to everybody. We're going to have picture contests. So everybody on the day of the conference is going to wear their shirts. We're going to be able to do some live sharing and stuff. It's going to be different. We are trying our darndest to make this something unforgettable, Women in HVAC style, and even being virtual. So that's the big announcement I wanted to give everybody. If so far in September, we also have another event that we are planning. It is a regional event. So far, it is going. It can be canceled depending upon what the climate is, nationally and locally. But in Tampa, the 20th of September, we have a regional event planned at the Tampa Riverwalk. And that Tampa Riverwalk regional event is going to be Sunday afternoon, the 20th. And we'll have Ruth King, Angie Snow, and Crystal Williams speaking at that event. Now, we'll have more information on our website as we get it, but everything's kind of fluid because that's the theme of 2020. You don't know until you know. So, without any further ado, thank you guys for the announcements. Thanks for all jumping on today. And we have Jim from MeasureQuick to share with us. Please use the chat for your comments or unmute yourself and ask questions. I know Jim would love to answer any of your questions. And we're going to talk a little bit afterwards too and open up for questions as well. But if you have something in the chat, go ahead, throw it in. Go ahead, Jim.
All right. So I just to confirm my screen is up, right? And got good audio. Okay, cool. So just a little bit of background. I've actually been doing this for 31 years now. I've been in the industry, sort of grew up in this. My father did this for a living. I was like riding with him since I was a kid, 6 years old. And, so really passionate about the industry. Was a tech for about 15 years and then went into education and was a teacher. I taught high school program for another 12 years. And it was really an enlightenment period for me because I found out a lot about how people learn and how people do things. And so it opened up a whole bunch of new opportunity for me. I'm going to put my phone here on mute for the hour here. Sorry about that. So it really taught me a lot about how people learn. And it was about the time the iPad came out, and being a teacher, I'm like, and looking at this, looking at my meter displays and thinking about all the things that we're trying to teach students at the time and how we're communicating all this information and how different learners are. We have people that are visual learners, people that are auditory learners, people that are, the readers, and kinesthetic learners learn, hands-on. And realistically, there wasn't a great way to communicate the amount of information we had to communicate. And so that's really how I got to where I'm at today with Design and MeasureQuick and taking all these digital tools and tying them together into a platform. And when you look at our industry, we're actually in a DOE project right now called Building America with the Department of Energy to actually show how these types of technologies can improve the industry. And some of the stuff we pulled up from the study I thought you might find interesting. There's 128 million residential households in the USA and 3 million residential systems. So $14 billion a year is spent on service and repair, 14 billion. And here's the interesting thing is 70% of systems are currently operating at 50 to 90%. So when you think about the technicians that work for your companies, you got to ask yourself, are your techs the ones that are finding them that way or leaving them that way, right? 7 out of 10 systems have charge and airflow problems. 7 out of 10 systems are not working properly, operating at 50 to 90% of their rated efficiency. This means that there's a plethora of opportunity out there, and we're leaving a lot of billable work sitting on the table because people aren't realizing these problems that exist. Residential systems, when we did the study, again, the DOE, the most common problems were charge. People aren't getting refrigerant charge right. They're doing inadequate maintenance. There's a lot of electrical control failure, there's sensor problems, and actually drainage problems, condensate drain problems. And incorrect refrigerant charge levels, just to put this in perspective, can cause a 20% reduction in the SEER rating of equipment, which is your efficiency of the equipment. So, little things, and we think about this stuff all the time, when we're out there, you hire somebody to do a tune-up or you hire somebody to work in your car, you make certain assumptions about the work that's getting done and the quality of the work that's getting done. And a lot of times those assumptions are wrong because our technicians aren't processed focused. They aren't doing things consistently the same way every time. And they aren't evaluating things in a way that's going to really end up with the results that we want to see. So a lot of what we design in software today is really about improving the process. And Edward Deming was actually around Chrysler days. He actually took mass manufacturing to Japan for cars because they wouldn't listen to him at the time in the US. It was all about, quality comes not from inspection, but improvement of the process. And so if you think about what's happening out there, you send a technician out and he's doing an inspection on a unit. What does that inspection entail? What is he actually measuring? People actually get what I call appliance fixation, or they make where they think everything can be solved at the condenser or at the evaporator. And a lot of technicians make measurements without knowing what those measurements actually mean. And if you think about if you went to your doctor for a minute, and your doctor measured your temperature, you'd expect it to be about 98.6 degrees, right? I mean, you expect to see something in that range. And because he has a reference, he's measured a lot of people's temperatures and he knows this is what your temperature should be. And some people maybe are a little higher or a little bit lower, but you're in the expected range. And if your doctor, wrote down your temperature was 103 and just recorded it and on a sheet and then sent you home and you were to die from infection, let's say, you'd find out very quickly from a team of lawyers that, that your doctor's going to get sued because he missed something very vital. And, we get technicians out every single day recording things on their check sheets and they have no idea that those measurements are out of specification. We've seen this a lot, even on combustion side with people doing combustion testing, things like that, where they are recording things on their check sheets that are incriminating information. I actually did expert witness work twice now for companies, and 2 times we subpoenaed check sheets. 2 times there was incriminating information left on the check sheets because the technicians simply made measurements without understanding what they meant. And this, if honestly, if we were to take 100 technicians and ask them, before you hook up your gauges, what are your pressures going to be? They would look at you like the deer in the headlight, and most of them would have no idea. If you say, don't tell me about what they're going to be, tell me exactly what they're going to be. Most technicians can't tell you because they don't understand that we're never taught correctly how to evaluate these things. So what's happening in our industry today is we need a better way of doing things because it's become more critical than ever to set up equipment properly to get the efficiency out of it that it's engineered for. It used to be there's a little bit of cushion in there, and there's just not that cushion anymore. So we've got to do things right. And if you think about, classically, obviously we have a lot of men that are service technicians in the industry, and most men are visual learners, and we convey most information though through books and through manuals, installation manuals, things like that. And that's not the learning medium that a lot of guys like to use. They want to so have somebody show them how things are done, not read about how they're done. And so the communication method we're using has really been tough for the industry, because how do you get new information across? So what we did at MeasureQuick a lot was change it to visual. Just to put this in perspective, we have about 30,000 users of our software today. It's free software, and all over the country, and it's growing about 1,000 a day. And so people are liking the way we're transitioning the technology platform over. So how do we leverage technology to solve this problem? Well, MeasureQuick, it's a free application. We kept it free on purpose because we wanted to better the industry. And it's sort of like a diagnostic scan tool for your car. So if you think about, what's interesting is you got all these different manufacturers: Testo, Fieldpiece, CPS, Redfish, AccuTools, Yellow Jacket, Sporlan. They're all making all these smart tools today, and all these smart tools, they all have their individual applications, and all of them are just basically taking what used to come out on a display like this one here on the meter and just regurgitating it on an iPad. And that's real nifty. I guess you can see your display on your iPad now, but we wanted to do something different, which is actually doing something with the data. So MeasureQuick actually not only makes all the readings, but then does the diagnostics. So think of it like a scan tool for your car. And the difference is, on your car, there's sensors embedded in the car all the time. So there's all these sensors, and you plug a tool in and it scans it, and information comes off those sensors and it tells you what's wrong with the car. On air conditioning, that's really would be really expensive to have all those sensors on there. They do it on big commercial stuff, but not on residential equipment. So we use portable sensors from a bunch of different manufacturers. We connect them to the air conditioning system for a few minutes, leveraging all that Bluetooth technology, and then we run the diagnostic on software, and then print out the results and do the testing. So it's a whole different way. It actually replaces what you would call your analog gauges. We have a lot of technicians still use analog gauges. It replaces those gauges, and with a much more rich measurement set. The key thing here is we need to think about processes, and a lot of technicians, we send them in the field, and we send them out with check sheets and paperwork and things like this, but there's really, they all have their own process that they follow. And that's where a lot of problems arise, right? I mean, I'm sure everybody in this room has a process. They do something, whether it's balancing your checkbook, or, or how you cook a meal, or how you change your oil in your car, or whatever you want to do. There's some process that you follow for whatever you're doing, right? And if you follow that process exactly, and we consistently use the same process, then we can improve it. And when you have 30 technicians and they're all doing something different, it's very hard to improve your process. And what you end up with is you end up with a lot of different answers to problems and a lot of missed opportunity. So we walk the user through a process. We assist them with the completion of that process. If they run into problems along the way, we assist them with those problems. It documents the result. The other thing it does is it looks at the system. And this is an interesting conundrum in our industry is, again, goes back to this appliance fixation thing. You know, if you think about your body, if you went in again to the doctor and you know, and you had a heart that was failing, right? And all they did was just, you know, take your heart out and put a new heart in there. And they didn't look at your arteries and everything that's connected to it and why your heart failed in the first place. You know, just put a new heart in. Obviously the new heart's going to fail again soon. And that's just like the compressor in your air conditioning system, right? So people are always out changing parts. Oh, your compressor failed. Well, that's nifty. Why did it fail? Well, it just failed. Well, they're missing things like maybe there was an overcharge. Maybe there was an airflow issue. Maybe there was an electrical issue. And they're not looking at the system that's tied to. So when you think about an air conditioning system, you know, everybody just thinks about the outdoor and the indoor unit. What you really need to think about is, you know, there's a breaker box there, and that breaker box feeds all the way through your disconnect, all the way to your air conditioner. So there's like this electrical system that's part of your air conditioner. There's an air distribution system that distributes the air from the air conditioning system out to the house. There's a condensate disposal system that gets rid of the condensation. There's a refrigeration system, the lines that connects this stuff all together. There's a filtration system that handles removing the contaminants and things out of your ductwork. And if you don't look at it from a systems approach, this is where you're missing all the opportunity, because guys will go out and they'll take a look at things at the condensing unit, you know, the compressor, the capacitor, whatever it is. They condemn the part, they change the part, but they don't look at the system, and that's where we have the challenges at. The other thing we did with MeasureQuick was we, you know, because we're tied to the internet with a lot of these things, tablets, phones, things like that, we can allow for data sharing, and I'll show you that in just a second. But it's about a one and done. So we're going to deploy all these probes. We're going to make the measurements. We're going to do the diagnostics. We're going to optimize the system, and then we're going to store that data in the cloud. And this is probably one of the most powerful things when we talk about software today is being able to share data and share information. You know, it's crazy today if you think about just our political climate and our COVID-19 things, how much information is shared today on the internet. If you can imagine, nobody would even know about COVID-19 if it wasn't for Facebook, right? And social media and media. I'm at the point now where I shut off my TV because I'm so tired of getting bombarded with all this stuff. And but if you think about the way data is shared today, being able to put data up in the cloud and pull it back down again, it gives us a tremendous amount of power for doing that. So when you think about any kind of a solution, right? There's a guy, I can't remember, his name's Simon. I can't remember his last name. He always talks about a lot of companies can tell you what they do, and a few companies can tell you how they do it. But very few companies can tell you why, right? And we always want to know why. You know, why would you want to solve these problems with software and with an application, no less, right? Well, the big whys we're trying to solve are reducing callbacks. Callbacks for your company are erode your profit. If you think about your everybody in your office is overhead. There's really not too many people, maybe with the exception of a salesman, that are actually bringing cash into your company. So when you think about, you got all your service techs out in the field, they're the only ones generating cash. Everybody else is overhead. So that technician has to make enough money to cover your overhead costs and then your truck costs, your insurance costs, everything else that's tied with that. So a typical callback actually costs your company anywhere from $250 to $1,000, depending on your overhead cost. And if you think about, typically it takes about one person to support every two techs in your company. If you were to just do the back of the napkin math, and sometimes it's almost a one-to-one relationship, depending on the company. And so when that technician is on a callback, not only is there opportunity loss because he's not billing for something else, there's also all the overhead costs that he's got to cover. of your company. And then, obviously, and then there's obviously the cost of the callback itself. So there's a lot of costs that people don't realize, and we want to reduce those. Decreasing service times is another big one. And by using software and to do the diagnostics, by the time the system stabilizes, we can have a diagnostic run and I can generate a report on there. First time fix rates. I just was on a call the other day with a company that had 100% callback rate. 100% means 100% of the jobs that they installed, they had to go back on. Think about that for just a minute. So that was costing them literally tens of thousands of dollars out there. We're all having a problem today with hiring technicians. And so doing more with fewer technicians is really, really important. And again, these are problems we can solve with software. Closing the education skills gap. We really focused on this piece of it because, and I'll show you in some slides coming up here, we provide what's called just-in-time education. So like when you're looking at this pressure and you see it's out of range here, we can have diagnostics and we have verbiage in it to help the technician understand what's going on, when it's going on, so they can get this solved. Service opportunities, we want to increase our service opportunities. We want to increase our service contract retention. And big for the environment, obviously we want to reduce our energy usage. Air conditioning is the largest consumption of energy on our grid today. And then providing transparency for the customer and accountability for the technician. If any of you are service managers, an interesting thing is on the days that you have your service meetings or guys come in their office, just take a walk out in your parking lot. And if you walk out there, you're going to see your technicians doing paperwork in their truck, right? They're catching up and they're literally writing in readings on the check sheets like they remember them for 2 weeks ago. And we call this pencil whipping paperwork. And sometimes they're out there and their intentions are good, but they get, it's 4:30 on a Friday. There's the last tune-up. They don't want to go through and write everything down. And it's about, keeping honest people honest and making sure they're doing what you actually paid them to do, right? And if we do all this stuff, we actually end up with happier techs that sleep better at night, because so many times guys go home, girls go home, it's in the back of your head, what in the heck was going on at that job? And you're trying to figure it out. And, with this just-in-time education and things like that, we can help that. So the idea behind this is, when we detect a fault, right? And these are all what's called probability-based faults. So there's, like, in this case, there's 2 symptoms of restriction in the liquid line, 2 symptoms of a dirty condenser, 3 symptoms of an overcharge, 5 symptoms of low capacity, and then 5 symptoms of a return air duct leak. So the highest thing, the most concerning thing right here is this return air duct leak, or maybe we have energized strip heat. And what we would do here is, we investigate this one first. Well, if you tap on this, it's going to give you the talking points for the technician. So here's what's wrong. Here's what to check. Here's what to look for, and then there's some notes in there. So it actually walks the technician. Mrs. Jones, we just ran a scan on your system. It looks like you could have some ductwork leaking. I really need to get that resolved first before I can, tell if other things are wrong, because a lot of these will clear out, right behind that. So if you think about it, if you've ever been to your doctor, they go there and they look at all the symptoms, but there's always an underlying cause, right? It's the exact same thing. So when you think about an air conditioning system, a lot of people try and solve the problems with, like, removing or adding charge to a system. So they see low suction pressure and they just add refrigerant to it. Well, it's most likely an airflow problem that's causing that. And so, it's like having a broken foot and taking an aspirin. Yeah, it may resolve some of the pain, but it doesn't fix the underlying condition. And so Measure Quick looks at all of the all these different problems, and it's over 150 different problems, aggregates them, and then provides just-in-time education for your techs to fix it. Now, you don't even have to have Bluetooth tools, by the way, to use this. You can input data manually. We have colleges all over the country that use this to teach technicians, how to use the data and stuff out there. So what we try to do is make things very visual, right? And even if you have no experience with air conditioning, you can look at this system and you can see, oh, this is in the right target range. This is in the right target range. All these are in the green. So it is very visual, telling you if things are in or out of range, right? We can also, and this is an interesting thing here, if you think about, if you got anybody in the audience here that does load calculations and does equipment selection, right? You've been selling, 2-ton units your entire career, maybe. And have your technicians ever seen if it's doing 2 tons of cooling, right? We sell, when we're in a business of heat and heat transfer, and removing heat from a place we don't want it, rejecting it at a place where it doesn't matter. Yet almost no technicians in our history of our industry ever checked that, because we didn't have tools years ago that could do that. And the calculations for this were pretty complex. And so and when you think about what's happening with an air conditioner, it's dynamic. Up here we're seeing this is unstable. So what that means is, as you think about what happens, as soon as you turn your air conditioner on in your house, the second you turn it on, it's actually not producing any cooling at that first second. As it runs over time, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, it gets up to its full cooling capacity, and then it becomes stabilized. But as it becomes stabilized, where your temperature in your house is dropping, your humidity in your house is dropping, and it's dynamic. Things are constantly changing. So this is like having somebody do a stress test on a treadmill, right? When they first start out, their heart's not beating very fast, they're not breathing very hard. But as they start running, they're doing more and more work, and then they get to a point where things stabilize, and either they survive it or they collapse, right? It's what stress testing is all about. So when we're doing air conditioning, it's a lot the same way, where we have to, we want to, first of all, make all these measurements. Second of all, do something with them. Third, do some kind of diagnostic, and then be able to report that data back. So, that's what we're trying to do, is convey things visually, and then also do all the calculations in the background for the technician dynamically live in real time, so that it can be easier to use. Once we capture all these measurements, and you get check marks here showing you everything's been done, you hit basically view or save, and then it's going to pull up a place where you can review your stuff and a geotag of where that equipment's located, and then it's going to generate a report. And I think I got a report picture later on down there. Now, this is pretty cool. So remote streaming of data is another thing we really wanted to focus on. And one of the challenges in the field, if you've ever had to do any technical support, you get on the phone with a guy and you're like, hey, I'm having trouble with this unit. Okay, well, what's your superheat? What's your suction pressure? What's your liquid pressure? What's this? What's that? And you're asking them a dozen different measurements, and somebody's got to think through all this stuff and put it all together. So supporting a guy over the phone becomes very, very complicated out there in the field. So now we can take your technician in the field, we can stream, he can have his tablet set up, basically stream the data, and somebody in the office can review that data and provide support. So now we're able to set up triage teams where, instead of your best technician maybe being in the field, there's an opportunity now for that guy that's retired, that's my age, 50 some years old, that doesn't want to be carrying tools across the roof, to use all that knowledge that he's got to support technicians in the field. Secondarily, being able to have a second set of eyes on your install teams. So once your installer's done putting in a system, being able to review that remotely, being able to see the diagnostics remotely, being able to make sure that the system's working correctly, is going to help eliminate those callbacks and keep your company more profitable. This is the Measure Quick report that gets generated. So you get a geolocation of it. You get to see what tools that the measurements came from. So these are the field piece probes that came from. This means the measurement wasn't made. These are calculated values. These came off a Redfish meter. This came off a Testo meter. So what this does is it assures that the technician actually made all the readings. And then you can see here, the technician didn't measure power, so we didn't get some of our efficiency calculations done here. So it allows us to, be very consistent. So I could let the technician know they need to go back and get these readings, let's say, and then we see the condition of the system was stable when he made the measurements. But it just allows us to have a window into what's going on, and a window for the consumer. This was literally generated at a push of a button. So now all these readings are in. We don't have anything transcribed incorrectly. We don't have anything that's pencil whipped. We don't have anything that's written in the wrong fields because the software does it all for you. We get the weather during the startup, a date and time stamp, our models and serial number information, stability, and a lot of other things. So that's the first part of the technology I want to talk about. And then I want to review a little bit, because once we get the system commissioned, right? So MeasureQuick is a commissioning tool where we go out and we get everything set up, we get it running the way we want it. But then, let's say you get it all running the way you want it, but now the consumer doesn't change the filter, right? And now it's headed for breakdown. Or the landscapers come out and they blow mulch around the condenser and pack the thing with mulch, or the cottonwood flies. Well, MeasureQuick can tell you it's running perfectly while we're there. Right now, we want to actually monitor the system and be able to know when it's going to fail. So Sensi, actually, we work with Sensi on again, and this ties back into MeasureQuick on what's called predictive maintenance. And again, looking at some of the industry issues we're trying to solve with software and tools, we have 20,000 technicians short right now. 40% of newly installed systems are not installed correctly. So again, the 7 out of 10 are heading for breakdown, and less than 10% of maintenance agreements are actually performed properly. So these are, again, huge problems that we're trying to solve, and they can be solved with technology. And so how do we manage the surprises in here? Eliminate the callbacks, eliminate the nuisance calls, and create a meaningful connection with the homeowners and things like that. And the balance our high call volume, because if you think about what's happening, you probably have, a lot of companies have 25, 30,000 service contracts, and you go out there twice a year, and you may or may not get any value for your money. The equipment may not need checked. Think about your home refrigerator, right? Your home refrigerator, you bought that thing. How many of you have had your home refrigerator serviced? Almost nobody, right? I would say it's you have a home refrigerator, but it never requires any service. Well, why not? Because it's made at the factory, it's sealed, it's evacuated at the factory, it's charged at the factory. And if it doesn't work right, obviously you're going to look and say, let's see if the kids left the door open on it, or maybe vacuum out the condenser underneath it. But the last thing you're going to do is tap into a sealed system and check the refrigerant charge in it. And those things run for 25 years without any problems at all. Yet we have to have a service contract on our air conditioning system. And sadly, a lot of times the technicians are actually causing more problems than they're solving, leaving caps off of systems, improperly washing condenser coils. And realistically, think about just like having open heart surgery. It's like going to your doctor and they want to check your heart. Instead of listening with a stethoscope, they crack open your chest to see what it looks like in there, right? And we're doing this all the time with air conditioning systems and doing a lot of service work that is unneeded. So being able to monitor remotely, and this is what Sensi does, is we have a data hub, and basically what we do is we have a set of 10 sensors: supply air temp, return air temp, liquid line, suction line, indoor control lines, meaning that like the monitoring the thermostat calls for heating or cooling, indoor current voltage, outdoor current voltage. And what we can do with this is we can continually monitor the system and do what's called predictive maintenance. So what Sensi does, it actually detects things are failing before they fail. And then it notifies the homeowner and notifies your company what's happening, what intimate failure is going to happen, and then what parts you need to go out. So it'll tell you a capacitor's failing, or condenser's dirty, or filter needs changing. And so what it does, it makes every call now a billable call. And we're not doing any unneeded service in the system. So this is sort of like continual monitoring. It's extremely inexpensive. But it's a way now, instead of having service contract customers, we're going to run out twice a year and check the system. We only go out when we need to go out, and it monitors the system 24/7, 365. And then, so if you think about what we're doing now, we're using a tool like MeasureQuick to actually commission the system, make sure it's all running right. And then we're monitoring that system remotely now to make sure that it continues to operate the way it should work. So it's like very similar to OnStar on your car, where it's gathering data, it's monitoring it, notifies the driver with an idiot light telling you something's wrong, does some kind of analysis, and then you can schedule the repair. So it's basically predictive diagnostics for HVAC. There's 32 technical functions. It can detect frozen coil, your furnace not starting, a poor heat pump temperature rise, air conditioning temperature drop, compressor trips, capacitor failures, your filter, your temp split, your electrical health, power ratios, the outdoor airflows, approach temperature indoor, and then live electrical. It'll actually calculate how much gas you're using and how much electric you're using. This is an interesting dilemma with air conditioning systems, is you really don't know something's wrong until you get the bill that shows you used all this electricity, and you can't undo that. So we work with a lot of utility clients, and they want to, obviously they're rolling out these tune-up programs, things like that, and they have to do what's called pay for performance, or they need to see savings at the meter at the end of the year. Well, by the time the electricity is used, if you don't know something's going awry, it's used, and you can't undo that problem. And then the other thing is, being, a lot of people go, well, I have my service contract, so I can see my customer and have a relationship with them. Well, the cool thing is with technology today is we can actually send them a monthly report showing them how much power they used, how much air conditioning they used, what the run times were, and with basically a performance report showing them that everything's going well, showing them their filter life, so they know if their equipment's headed for breakdown. So there's a lot of again, problems we can solve with software that we haven't been able to solve in the past. And so the ability to offer smart technology for a company and 24/7 monitoring with the performance alerts, filter reminders provides a lot of peace of mind for the consumer. And the demographic is interesting that buys this. It's actually there's a lot of older widowed and single women love this type of technology. It resonates with them because it's like having a third party doing a test on their system through Emerson Climate. So it provides a lot of transparency, and also, people don't want to be without their heating and their cooling. So knowing that something's headed for a breakdown provides a lot of peace of mind and comfort. But the real thing that it was interesting when Emerson came out with this product, they were really, it was actually initially called Comfort Guard, and it was all about making sure people were comfortable. But it actually turned into a better product for the contractor than it did for the homeowner, because for the contractor, it allowed them to even out their service business, know things were going to break before they broke. So, for example, typically we don't know a capacitor fails until the consumer doesn't have air conditioning. But with products like Comfort Guard or Sensi Predict, we can monitor the system. We can actually tell the capacitor starting to fail. If you have a good relationship with that consumer, you can say, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, your capacitor is starting to fail. Tell you what, we'll just send a tech out. Everything can be done from the outside. We don't even need to come in the house. We can just swap that capacitor out for you, and we'll just send you an invoice." So, and things like COVID-19 today, and people not wanting other people in their homes, and then knowing you're not going to be without your cooling, it's a really good use of technology. So we're going to
diagnostic work with any other system besides Sensi?
There's actually not too many of them out there right now. So MeasureQuick, we partnered with Sensi. When they came out with Sensi Predict, they actually got about 1,000 units out there, and they pulled it back a little bit on the market, because what was happening was it was creating truck rolls because technicians were missing problems that they should have found at the time of Sensi installation. So that for Sensi was like they're saying, "Oh, these things are great, but as soon as we get it put in, 2 weeks later, it's creating a service call, and we got to go back out and fix it." So they needed a tool like MeasureQuick to actually solve the initial problem, which was finding out the system wasn't running right, and then monitor from that point. Otherwise, when you're doing data aggregation, you have to get enough data that you can actually start to do an assessment of that data. So we provide the baseline for now Sensi to monitor from. And there's, I think, 1 or 2 other companies that are using some types of this technology.
Red Links, anything like that, doing any type of like Ecobees, Red Links, Nest.
Well, so that's a little bit different. That's actually thermostat and Wi-Fi thermostats. And so there's a lot of things you can tell off the thermostat. This is actually a little bit different of a type of product where it's actually monitoring
just in the system then.
Yeah, the system instead of just the runtime of it.
I know the
Um,
Sensi has the thermostats too, and so that's why I think that was the question in there was whether they had something different besides the Sensi thermostats as far as doing stuff like this. So
yeah, no, measure, again, the hub is not really, it can monitor the call. So what's interesting, like what you can use any thermostat with Sensi Predict. You could use Ecobee or you could use a Nest or whatever you want. It's just going to monitor the call. This actually is the computer that mounts onto your appliance. Now, if you think about like again, your car has got all these sensors built in. So this is like an aftermarket solution that we can mount to the appliance. That'll
yeah, no, I get that, and it's kind of
Yep.
like when you go to the auto place and they plug the diagnostic tool,
Exactly.
and they can get all the readings. I absolutely, I was just that was the question in the chat, and the other one was are there limitations to the size of equipment for Sensi? I'm a commercial HVAC and see this as possible sales tool for high quality maintenance.
So right now, the challenge with rooftop equipment and this technology is getting access to the Wi-Fi. So they're working on some of this that's going to be probably what they call data over line. So it actually transmits the data over your power lines. And to make something more for rooftop units. It's in the works at Emerson. I don't know where that project's at with them. This is more around the residential segment right now. There are some companies that have used it on single phase rooftop equipment, but like the 3-phase stuff, they don't have a product made for that yet. We do have a lot of people, interestingly enough, we are seeing a huge transition over on the commercial side with MeasureQuick, where people are using the sensor technology, because like on rooftop equipment, you a lot of times you have to take the panels off, and you need to put your gauges in, but then put the panels back on so you don't disrupt the airflow through the system. And so a lot of this wireless technology is really conducive to that type of testing need. And so you get a lot better results on rooftop equipment, things like that, because the probes can be all put inside, then close the doors up, and then stream the data out. So we do have a lot of commercial users that use MeasureQuick, but Sensi's more geared around the residential side on that. And so it's, the idea behind leveraging this technology again is, you know what's wrong before you go to the job. So you think about that, that's really cool because you're eliminating unnecessary truck rolls. You got the right capacity, you know the models and serial numbers because you've been out there. It's going to tell you what all that is. You know what capacitor to take out with you. You know what filter. You're limiting nuisance calls because you can actually also view the data remotely. So maybe somebody just doesn't have the thermostat set right, or maybe they just need to change their filter. Allows you to better leverage your technicians. And we all know we got technicians at different skill levels out there. And so we're trying to leverage technology to really like flatten the curve when it comes to the technicians out there. Because when you use a product like MeasureQuick and it's got built-in diagnostics, every tech doesn't need to use that, right? I mean, if like I've been doing this for 30 years, I can look at the gauges or MeasureQuick and I can tell you when I have an undercharge or an overcharge or refrigerant. A younger tech going out may not be able to tell that, and they'll tap on the diagnostics and leverage the technology to be able to solve the problem. So it allows us to, give that technician that just-in-time education. It's like having a lead tech standing right over their shoulder. And when we're using it in conjunction with products like Sensi, it allows us to send the right tech out to get the problem solved. So, again, it helps with the technical support and better leveraging your workforce. And then obviously doing remote diagnostics and verification. You get like there's a management portal now, so we can see all of our customers, and we can see their systems. Helix system, main floor, first floor. We can see what's going on, whether they have failing outdoor components, refrigerant temperatures too low. So it gives us some information. And this is like the work proposal summary that would get sent to your homeowner. So that's going to tell you the conductivity went down 2 days ago. There's a problem with the heating, the cooling's passing, the filter life's at 20%. So it's going to convey this information on a monthly basis to your homeowner out there. And then, it's all about, again, providing those monthly reports, real-time alerts, and, leveraging technology to just make the job easier to do on there. We always get, well, how is this? What a tech say? We sent out both Sensi and MeasureQuick have sent out questionnaires on the technology, and we get a lot of positive feedback. We get tons of it all the time. People wonder why we give this away, and it's really about transforming the industry. It's we do have some paid services and things like that, but the big reason we did this was to improve the industry, because as an industry, we're seeing a lot of the same mistakes made over and over again. And me being in education, I'm like, we just got to have better tools to communicate better to the technician, better to the homeowner, better to the office, to solve some of these productivity problems we're having today. And so, when you're going through and thinking about what you guys are doing with your companies, these are great tools you can leverage. Not a big learning curve for your technicians, and really change the way that you're doing your business. So it's at that point, it's the end of my presentation. I could be glad to answer some questions and stuff if anybody's got some questions. This is the part where you got to drag them out of their holes, and everybody's got to start talking.
Well, we had a couple in the chat that we've kind of answered those, and Valerie did a good job following up with them as well. And
I have a question.
there you go.
Hey, Tiffany.
Hello. Just my question, I have a little bit of a scenario. Hopefully this will apply to others as well. So my husband and I and a partner have started a business, and we're all wearing multiple hats. And my husband and the partner are very busy doing installs, but in order to get more clients and to kind of systematize maybe hiring a new technician, would it be beneficial for me, who's trying to kind of pick up some of the delegation areas, would it be beneficial for me to learn this program to help systematize hiring new technicians?
As far as, I would say, yeah. I mean, there's interesting things you can do with it. And, Valerie, my daughter, she went to work for us about 1.5 years ago, and she actually came out of the pharmaceutical industry, and she's sort of a science nerd and geek, and she picked up on this stuff pretty quickly. And again, because it doesn't take, because the way the data is communicated and it's very visual in nature, even you being a second set of eyes to verify, installations and things are done right, or being able to look at data remotely, I think would have some value to it. Part of as an owner, a big thing we want to do is we want to want to have some tools to keep people accountable to make sure things are done right, because it's your reputation on the line. At the end of the day, if you think about, you're sending a technician out there, he's representing your company and representing you. So being able to have a window into what the technician's doing and seeing and how they're leaving those jobs is going to really help to eliminate some callbacks and things like that are going to impact the bottom line of your business and also your productivity. So I would say, anytime you can leverage technology and learn technology because what's cool with what we're doing with MeasureQuick is you don't have to be an HVAC technician to visually see that things are in or out of range. Right.
Good. That's kind of, because I need to be able to understand a little bit, right? Because I'm not the technician. So that's what I wanted to know is like, will I, as someone who's kind of from the outside, be able to understand some of the information?
Yeah, I absolutely think you would. And we do a ton of videos online that explain how to use the technology, a little bit about what it does, how it all works together. So there's a lot of learning resources for these types of technologies you can get. And it's just a matter of, I think spending a little bit of time. What I always tell people is hook it up to your home system, crack open a bottle of wine, sit and watch things operate and look at what's going on. And you'll learn a lot about just how your system operates in general. And you also find out if your system's operating properly at home, which, we find a lot of people, again, MeasureQuick picks up problems that people are overlooking.
Well, I know what I'm doing Friday night.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing better than MeasureQuick and wine. And I'm telling you, people don't know the power of that. It's so relaxing. So, yeah, but it's honestly, it's changing the way that because we're changing the way that people see the data. If you think about measurements in general, if somebody just writes down a bunch of measurements on the check sheet, that really doesn't help you understand what's going on. And so part of what spurred this was when I go to the doctor and they do like a blood draw, and then they give you, they say, well, here's where your A1C is at, and here's where this is at, and here's where that's at. It was like, when I look at all those things, I have no idea what they mean. But when somebody tells me they're in range or out of range, or is this too high or is this too low? Now at least I have some intelligence that I can do some research and go, okay, what does it mean that my A1C is too high? Or what does it mean that my white blood cell count is too low? And now I can start, because they're giving me a measurement and a range. And if I'm in or out of that range, I can now start to ask the right questions. And so that's what the whole just-in-time education piece is about in Measure Quick. And it's the same thing with Sensi Predict. It's about telling you, it's predictive maintenance to tell you, make the measurements and tell you what's most likely wrong with that system. So it's literally changing the game out here now on how things are done in our industry, because we're leveraging technology to communicate in new ways that we just haven't been able to do in the past.
Did that help, Tiffany?
Yes, thank you.
All right. So I know Darla had a question, and then Cindy, I'm going to let you ask yours because I know you're not shy. Darla.
Cindy Mann?
Yes.
How do we know? Cindy, not shy.
Which Cindy?
That's all you need to know.
I feel like I'm getting a bad rap.
Oh, no, not at all.
I can be quiet.
First.
I was
Darla
quiet this whole time.
You're fine. Darla wanted to know how she can purchase Sensi Predict.
Sensi Predict, you just reach out to Emerson, and if you just go to sensipredict.com or sensi.com and go to Predict, they actually have a whole thing where you can go through and they'll do a presentation with you and sign you up and all those types of things. So we don't do anything with that on our side, but Emerson can definitely help you with that. And then it is a product that you go through a training on, and once you're trained, you can become an authorized reseller of it. It's about $250 to the contractor, and it's they sell it for anywhere from $300 to $500 installed. Typically, it's done at the time of a new installation, and then it's $25 a year to monitor it. So it's very inexpensive, and they monitor it 24/7 for you. And then, like I said, send the alert. So if you're building a new company, that's incredible technology and leverage. And I would actually highly suggest you consider starting with predictive maintenance and doing it as, going forward, because that's going to enable you guys to work with a much smaller workforce a lot more effectively and still keep that communication.
Jim, this is Darla. So we did go through the training, the webinar with you and with Emerson, and we are on the list saying, hey, we're definitely interested, but then it kind of stalled, and so now we don't know what the next step is. We want to purchase it. We want to put it in our shop. We want to start learning and being trained before we start putting it out there for the customer. So I just don't know what the next step is.
So what you could do, Darla, there's a company, TruTech Tools, TRUTECH tools.com.
Right.
They're a reseller of Sensi.
Mm-hmm.
They're a reseller of Sensi. So you can actually buy a Sensi Predict through them, and then you could install it in your shop and get it hooked up and commissioned. I'll get a hold of Brian Feeney at Emerson. Everybody's been working from home, and it's been crazy with COVID for them. But I'm jotting down your name right now, Darla, and then I'll have Brian reach out to you, and I'm sure it's just an oversight.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We've been ready to, like I said, install it. I already have new installs that the customer has agreed. Yeah, we use our system, to try it out, and so we're definitely ready to go.
All right. No, I'd be glad to help with that.
Yeah, and then with Measure Quick, we've been contacted by our power company to work with them with a new program that'll roll out next year, but they want to use us kind of to help them out with the Measure Quick for the installs.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually, is that through
Evergy.
Evergy? Yeah. Yeah. We're helping them get that program together now. That's probably one of our biggest customer bases, and they use our software as utility clients to make sure that equipment, like when they do a new installation, that it's installed with quality, that measurements are made to make sure it's going to work right. And they're going to see the energy efficiency that their utility is subsidizing.
Right. Well, we use Measure Quick every single day for every single service call, and now for every single install. So they know we're on board with it. So we can't wait to get the Sensi Predict as well.
Oh, awesome. Well, what's your company, Darla?
Pentech, P-E-N-N-T-E-C-H.
P-E-N-T-E-C-A?
P-E-N-N.
Okay.
T-E-C-H. In Blue Springs.
All right. All right.
And we don't give our techs an option. I mean, they're just automatically, they need to be on board with what we're doing, and that is definitely using Measure Quick because we see the value of it, and we don't have to leave a service call not knowing, what's going on. So every tech is required to purchase the equipment, and they send me PDF reports while on the job, so I can immediately look at it. And, if I have questions and I was like, oh, hey, your tonnage says 1 because it defaults to 1, you need to change your tonnage on the equipment. While they're there, I look at them and then I save them to the customer file. So we definitely love your software and partnering with you guys.
Oh, great. Yeah, and I think that goes back to the earlier question we had was, I don't know if you have a real technical background or not, Darla, but it doesn't, I think you'd agree that it doesn't really take a lot of technical aptitude to actually understand what things are, once you get the reports in your hand, we do a lot of that for you. I think and that was the whole concept behind it is being able to help non-technical people be able to understand data better and help technical people leverage it, more. So it's I appreciate the feedback.
Well, and we also, in our staff meetings, we always go through the previous day's job before we discuss today's project. And so we are able on a big screen TV, we pull up those reports, those Measure Quick. And as a team, we look at them and see what's going on and, offer like, oh, hey, it looks like it's overcharged, or wow, do we need to go back and, do something to follow up? So we love Measure Quick.
Oh, thanks. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's good. Really good to hear the feedback, and it's good to hear you guys are implementing some best practices. Not enough companies. I think that's probably one of the most valuable things you can do is sit down as a team and go over service tickets and calls and discuss them, because the training, you're actually doing a lot of training there, and also a lot of accountability for your technicians because they know the work that is going to be reviewed. And that's something that is invaluable as a company. When I worked with, I don't know if you guys know Pat Jackson Comfort Systems. I worked for her back when I was starting my career, and that was one of the things they did. And I learned more at that company in the first several years than I learned at any other company I was at, simply because we had the senior technicians helping the younger technicians analyze the data that they were recording on their check sheet and spotting those problems before they became callbacks.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the guys will get their tools, their field pieces, whatever, and we go through them right then and there. So if a guy doesn't know, well, how did you get to that screen? How did how did we get this reading? Then that way we're hands-on and everybody is showing each other, something new. And you guys are always updating something. So there's always something new for us to learn and to share with all the other guys.
Well,
so we love helping.
if I can do a presentation for you guys on the a lot of times after people get up and started using it, we'll do some like service meeting presentations. If you ever want to block out 40 minutes to an hour, I'd be glad to come in and do a training session with your techs on advanced, some of the advanced stuff that you can do with the software.
Okay, that sounds great. Appreciate it.
Sure. Just jim@measurequick.com. You can reach out to me.
Which
Okay, sounds
segues into Cindy's question as we're wrapping up.
It was so perfect. It's like I paid Darla to do her spiel before I got on with Jim. So I actually work with Jim for years. We've been friends and colleagues, and I sell some of the tools and instruments that work with MeasureQuick. And when I talk about our probes, I recommend, it does work with everything. And that's, I'm the field piece rep, and obviously the Supco gals here, we all want you to buy our stuff or whatever, but Jim came up with it doesn't really matter, as long as you have a good enough product to sync up with his software, you'll be eligible. So thank you, Jim, for bringing the together. So the biggest problem I'm seeing in the field is Darla is the exception to the rule. People are resisting using the phone. I can't see the phone. I'm the old school and the new guy. There's this whole delta gap between the great way that Darla's running it and what's really happening mostly everywhere else.
Yeah, it is very interesting when you look at how.
So my question is, what are some things you've seen people do to get people to adopt this technology other than Darla telling them, if you don't do that, you don't work here?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of success with flogging. Yeah. So you just beat them into submission. Eventually, they'll use the technology.
The beating
biggest...
will continue until morale improves. Okay. All I got.
That's so funny.
So
blogging. Okay, I'll use that.
Yeah, no, people are really resistant to change because they've been doing it. I always tell people say I have 20 years of experience, and I say in reality you have 1 year experience 20 times. You've been doing the same thing for 20 years without changing, and you're making the same mistakes over and over again. And part of there's two types of companies. We actually had another company out in California. The name's slipping my mind right now, but they actually just pulled all the analog gauges off the trucks, and they said, listen, we're not allowing you guys to use this old technology anymore. And it went at an office meeting. They got all the guys' keys. They went through. They pulled off all the analog tools, and they left them with the digital stuff. And they said, this is what we're doing going forward. And once the guys used it for about 3 days, some of the guys that were really like the naysayers fell in love with the technology because it did so much more for them so much faster, and they didn't realize what they were missing. So sometimes it's just if you don't get that buy-in, you've got to push a little bit on your own to get it done. Because technicians are just creatures of habit, unless unless you can persuade them, which is not always easy.
Nobody changes when they're comfortable, and it's when they're uncomfortable that you have to do it.
That's right.
The approach I've been taking is that this is unfortunately a don't touch me, don't go near me economy. And this wireless reporting allows for people to do the most contactless, not having to stay in the same room.
Yeah.
Ever. This is the best possible way that you could do a service call as a company. So separate and aside from what Darla said, which was the real ice cream sundae, the fact that you're contactless now and that you could leave things there and that you're not on and go far away and read your measurement under a tree somewhere.
Right. And step out of the sun, for crying out loud. That's the other thing technicians didn't realize when they started with I actually had a technician, Steve Dardis out of Youngstown, call me one day and he goes, dude, you saved my knees. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I used to squat down and bend down and read the gauges and do this and that to get all the stuff. He goes, I can just stand up and look. He goes, I thought for sure I'd hate a smartphone, working off a smartphone. He goes, I can step out of the sun now when it's hot. And the other thing, by the way, shout out to Supco for the Supco umbrella, because if you're going to use, honestly, if you're going to use this technology, one of the problems that we've seen in the field is iPads overheating when the sun shines directly on them. So the Supco umbrella not only gets your tech out of the sun, but it gets your technology out of the sun and allows you to see screens easier and do things better. So that umbrella, I think, has been one of the biggest sellers in Supco's history of, but it's a great technology for you guys that are implementing digital technology to help address, one of the issues. Well, the biggest people we see use this technology, believe it or not, are people that have already adopted iPads as part of the regular business. So like Service Titan users, people that are using Field Edge software, CRMs, that kind of stuff. They're the easiest transitions over to these types of technology, because there's two things when you convert to this technology, there's two things you got to remember. There's learning just to work with technology, work with an iPad or whatever, how do I manage the battery life? How do I haul this thing around? How do I interact with it? You got to remember, some techs are not tech savvy. They have not learned how to use some of these technologies. So some guys still carry a flip phone, for crying out loud, right? Those probably aren't people that are going to transition easy. But if you're already using an iPad as part of your day-to-day business, it's part of your CRM. The guys have already learned how to, keep the thing plugged in their truck. They've learned not to keep it in the sun. They've learned, they've gotten over those hurdles. Now adopting the measurement technology becomes very, very easy. So it's just a matter of, sometimes it's not easy to get people to change, but I think Darla will tell you, and I know some of our other customers will tell you, they've seen, one of our customers saw 60% increase in new equipment sales because they're able to better convey to the homeowners more transparency. We had a customer that had a 400% return on investment in 3 months buying all the field piece tools. So they spent, all the tools that went into this, the iPads that went into it, the, paying for services, and they had a 400% ROI in 3 months. So, think about that for just a minute. And if you're reluctant to bring, your technicians want more money, how do your technicians get more money? They make the company more profitable, right? And this is another way you can overcome that. It's just like, we are wasting all of our money on callbacks. Do you guys realize this is literally cash from the bottom line gone, because it's got to, all the overhead costs it's got to support. So by adopting technology, by doing things faster, by eliminating the callbacks, if you guys want more money, this is how it's going to get done. We got to do more calls. We got to have fewer callbacks. We've got to identify more opportunities for repair. We've got to identify more equipment sales. We've got to have higher service contract retention. And so as a company, if and everybody wants to grow, if you want to grow your business, you want to pay your technicians more, they want to make more, technology is the way to do it, because it's going to solve a lot of the problems that we're struggling with today. And Cindy can get you all the great field piece tools you want. She's, we've had a lot of fun with this, actually, because I think Cindy and I both really embrace the technology and the change. Cindy's actually worked with me all the way going back to iManifold. We actually pioneered some of this stuff. Together.
I was going up the mountain with no shoes on in the snow with the iManifold all those years ago.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of fun watching this stuff mature, and I think it's a great opportunity to really change the whole industry.
And that Supco umbrella, by the way, I was at a counter day in Staten Island, New York, and someone came in and said it was the greatest thing they've ever bought in a supply house in the last 15 years. They loved it. So we're hearing great things about the Supco umbrella. Okay, well, for me, I just show, it's the future. This is how people are going to do things. So I asked that question kind of as I knew the answer already, but I thought it was important to address that, how important adoption is. And the technology is undeniable. The adoption is a little slower than I might have wanted it to be.
Well, we are out of time, but I guess it's a good mark. We have 19 people still on the call. We're 10 minutes after. We had discussion. I didn't have to pull teeth, and we learned a lot today. So I really want to thank you, Jim, for coming on, at least, sharing your knowledge with us for MetroQuick. Thank you guys, everybody that was able to attend the call today. We'll have the recording live on the website, and we'll have the whole presentation available pretty much by the end of the day today. So without any further ado, have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.